Hello, everyone. We are Moms on the Right, and you were just watching The Fire of Liberty if you are on our X channel. And now comes the moms. We can discuss a little bit of what our friend Lindsay with the co-founder and Tina Deskovich, they had a great show. I like to call Tina the CEO because she essentially is. So
she's our president.
CEO
in my brain. Yeah.
Brain. So, but there's so many things to discuss that like we should jump right in because
we can jump into the fact that Rosalind just said she wants it to keep raining, and
I don't want baseball tonight here in the DMV, so
I'm not over it yet.
Well, in Wisconsin, we have a saying: if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. But it's a little cloudy right now, but the weatherman promises that the sun is going to come out, and I hope so. You guys saw the video of my daughter playing soccer yesterday. The sun was out. It was beautiful.
It was blue, clear skies, real clouds. I mean, it looked beautiful.
It was pretty. Wisconsin summers are the best place to be in the summer, and we appreciate the warm weather. Unlike y'all, we appreciate it, and we like the sun is out. You're like, stop what you're doing, get off of work, get outside. Like enjoy it. It's a rare thing, so we love it. And I lived in Virginia for 6 years, and what I realized, what was great was the fall and Halloween trick-or-treating where you didn't have to get a snowsuit. That was fun, unlike in Wisconsin. But it's hot. Man, it's hot. It gets hot there in the summer. I don't know if I would. We have the bad winters, but your summers are hot. It gets really hot. So.
But yeah, no, it was great hearing. It was great hearing from Lindsay and Tina this morning. I thought the origin stories of how we all came to know each other and appreciate each other's strengths and restraints. Right, we all have them. It's really encouraging that everyday moms are coming together and getting ish done. So
yes, it's nice to have a podcast where it's the featured guest is someone that's relatable, that any mom could say like, oh yeah, I know, or any mom on Team Sanity that we can relate to. It's refreshing because there's so many podcasts where you hear the same people over and over. It's nice to hear from regular people that it's unscripted. You never know what they're going to say next. And I think it's cool.
Well, and she did a great job. Yeah, she did a great job. Is she coming on? Did you ask her if she's able to hop on?
I asked her. I would imagine she's wrapping up. I'm looking at my phone right now. I did ask her. I've been asking a bunch of people to come on, and they're all saying yes. Like Peachy Keenan, who I love. I have her book behind me, which is one of my favorite, the Domestic Extremist book. She's so funny. I love her. So if you don't know her, you will get to know her because she's coming on. And Patriot Barbie has agreed to come on, and her Instagram, I don't know, I want to ask her how I think she just records herself all the time, like really funny, really creative. And she's got this huge following on Instagram and everyone loves her. So I asked her. And then I just asked Terry Schilling, who is now like the it guy. I'm talking to Terry. He was just done with Tucker Carlson and Tim Pool. And I'm like, Terry, what's happening? Are you too famous to come on our podcast? And he said, no, he would come on. He said he loves the moms. So we're holding you to it, Terry. But yeah, so we're gonna grow this out and have our friends. Like we have so many cool friends. We're gonna have them come on and talk.
Have a lot of cool friends.
And I could just talk all day. So
really, Scarlett.
Like who's gonna join me next? Come on.
No, I'll segue you. I will segue you. So we were talking about how Lindsay and all of us are just everyday moms doing great stuff. So let's talk about the everyday parents who brought the lawsuit in California and got the opt-out removed when their son and his whole 5th grade class was being forced to go through this series of indoctrination with reading the My Shadow is Pink to the kindergarten class. Like, what a victory for parental rights. Like, kudos to mom and dad.
Yep. Here's the lawsuit. And you guys sent me this yesterday. And then I looked into it a little bit and I watched a video of one of the parents. And it was a parent of a 5th grade boy who was, you guys know, when your kids in school, the older schools are the buddies to the little ones, like the kindergarten.
Yeah, my kid was to the littles. Yeah, he was the older reader. It was a great experience. Yeah.
Yes. So this kid was one of the older readers and was forced to read, and I'll pull up an image of the book. My Shadow is Pink is the book. He was forced to read this to 5-year-olds in kindergarten. And when he told his parents about it, they said, no way. We want to opt our son out of this. And what happened? The school wouldn't let them. And the kids were actually bullied so badly that they had to withdraw from the school.
I don't know for certain, but I think that this is the same lawsuit that Allie Beth Stuckey featured in her book, Toxic Empathy, talking about gender ideology. And if I'm right on that, there was also then too, not only are they reading the book to the kindergartners, but then there is this gender affirming shadow exercise where the kindergartners had to lay down on the playground and get a chalk outline of whatever color shadow they wanted. Like, it was a full-on indoctrination experience of like, you can be whatever you want to be. Not happening. So thankful that this little boy had a great relationship with his family and was able to talk about this, and they took it to action.
Here are some more images from the book, and I know you probably can't see the small print, but basically what I thought was really shocking is this little boy, the character in the book, says, I like pink. I like books. I like fairies and princesses. So basically, I must be a girl. So you're telling a child, if you don't fit into sex-based stereotypes at 5 years old, well, then you just must be a girl. If you're a girl and you like cars, well, you must be a boy. I think that is absolutely unscientific. It's outrageous. And that these people think that they are the ones following science. This is pseudoscience crap, in my opinion. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
Sorry, I'm actually texting a mom in California right now to see if she wants to jump
she can
on.
Get on. Yeah,
that would be great. If she, send her the link. I would love
it right now.
So one of the things I think too, finish your text. Because we always want a gold star, a gold or silver star mom on there. Yeah. What is it? We have 2 sexes, 0 genders, and infinite personalities. Play with trucks. Wear dresses. Don't wear dresses. I don't care. Any of that. Like, be who you want to be. You're still a boy or a girl. That's it. That's all there is.
Well, Gays Against Groomers talks about this a lot. My friend Jamie Mitchell will talk about the fact that she was a tomboy and grew up same-sex attracted. But she worries, and that's why she fights so hard, that if she was growing up during this time, that her parents would have been pressured to transition her to a boy just because she was different and she was more of a tomboy. And she's like, but I'm a woman and I'm proud to be a woman. I'm glad that I'm a woman. I just, I have a different personality that, and to say that all women like pink, I know a lot of women that don't like pink or that don't like princesses, and they would much rather go to a monster truck show. I'm talking to my daughter. I'm like she's very unlike me. Like she's so excited to go to the monster truck show in Florida this weekend. So, like that doesn't make you less of a woman. It just makes you. It makes you what's interesting. And I think that we could talk about all these terrible books that are in 8th grade and they're very like a lot of sexual situations, but I kind of think that these psychologically manipulative books given to 5-year-olds are the worst of the worst, because they can have a real lasting damage on the minds of these young kids. These kind of books, instead of reading what we grew up with, like Goodnight Moon, they're reading about, look at this weird looking guy in a tutu. It's a shame. I
It
hope
is a shame.
that mom comes on. So let's so this is a big, but then Rosalind, so this issue, right, is closely connected to Pride Puppy, the issue with the case that you are very intimately involved with. So what will happen? What do you think will happen in June when the Supreme Court comes out with the decision? How does
I hope they stand with parents, right? I think that the tide is turning. I mean, and Tina alluded to this a little bit. We're about to celebrate 100 years of parental rights being recognized at the Supreme Court in a case, Pierce v. Society of Sisters. That's in Oregon, where children were required to go to public education. And that is a landmark case where the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that that wasn't the case. And so it's a great, great anniversary. And so it would be really wonderful to have another parental rights case be announced in June, 100 years after a landmark one like that. So this is just adding on to that, where hopefully we're going to see more common sense measures coming out in the, not just the court of public opinion, but in courts all across the country. People want to be able to have a choice in how they educate their kids and what materials they present to their kids. And I think that I'm excited about it. Jamie, do you think she'll be able to come on?
I don't know. So because it is 8 a.m. there in California, I was like, I'm gonna give you some time. We'll be on for the next 45 minutes or so. So I'll update y'all. But as far as some of these things, I mean, I had a few. She's no longer a librarian at my daughter's elementary school. But
speaking of your daughter, she's
which
in the picture. Your daughter's in the picture right here.
Oh yeah. That's in the bottom left corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a few. There was we talk about like the library catalogs, and we can see, a lot of us can see what's in the library and what they can check out, but that doesn't necessarily mean we know what the librarians are reading. In this case, what, fifth graders are reading to their reading buddies. And I only found out about a book, and it wasn't about gender ideology, but there was some other generative themes in it that the librarian read to my daughter. She was a first grader at the time, and she had asked to check it out. And so it came home, and I had a lot of questions about it. Like, what kind of conversations, what, first off, well, what did this have to do with the curriculum? And of course, I think they aligned it with like kids having differences, but the differences were, you're too skinny for this, or you're too fat for this, or your skin's too dark for this. And I was like, why are we, what?
Yeah.
What are you,
what
are you
messaging? Yeah.
And the message was like, oh, well, this book's about being kind. And I was like, but without saying that at all, like there's nothing in the book to suggest it was about being kind. And so,
it was more about identity then.
Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes what some of the things that we raise awareness about aren't necessarily the word, but in addition, like what's the message we're trying to push when it comes to the lesson associated, the conversations around it. And I'll actually, this might surprise you, but I will give Montgomery County Public Schools some credit here. And going back to every parent has the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children, right? It's our responsibility to be really involved and really engaged. If we are sending our kid to somewhere for 7 hours a day, yes, we should have trust, but we also have to inspect what we expect. And when it comes to like library materials in Montgomery County, there is a very robust process for reevaluation that parents can be participatory in. And also parents can, if I really wanted to, and I have, limit what books can and cannot be checked out by my child. And I can build a curated library for him. So that way his librarian knows this is a book that you can check out or you cannot. But that goes back to, I'm getting to drive that car if I want to drive that car. And that's up to me as a parent. And so they've given us the avenue to have independence, to have that conversation. It's up to us to take advantage of it.
Well, I will say that, of course, like until I got into some of this, I didn't know that. I didn't know that the destiny system in our library, we could flag certain things, we could add keywords that we didn't want based on how they're cataloged, and I think a lot of parents don't know that. So, the library books are not a hill I'm going to die on, but I think for awareness and education, parents do have the right to direct and find out what their kids are reading, and they should be involved.
Well, and I talked to you guys about this yesterday. So in elementary schools, and I'm sure this is the case for you guys if you remember, the kids go to the library at least a couple of times a week as a reward. And the kids get to take out 2 or 3 books. And I was a library volunteer in several of my children's schools. And so I would help the kids pick out a book and read to them and then clean up afterwards. And so it was a real treat that they got to pick out 2 books, take them home. And then if they brought them back, they could do it again. And so at that time, kids actually want to go into the little school library. They want to pick books, and the books that are featured every month, if it was Valentine's, we'd feature Valentine's Day books. The kids are going to gravitate towards those books. And the fact that every week there is some sort of woke holiday to celebrate, and trans visibility, and Pride Month, and then they'll have these books that are rainbow and they look really pretty and they're featured to the kids and then read to the kids. Well, then what's happening in the school library is becoming a part of the curriculum, and it is something that parents should be aware of. Because when they're reading these books, they're internalizing. I just had a parent of a 5th grader tell me that after a trip to the school library during the day, her 5-year-old son came home and said, "Mom, did you know that I could turn into a girl?" And then he was like, "I'm kind of scared. I'm worried I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be a girl." And he got that impression from reading books like Princess Boy or My Shadow is Pink. And he was genuinely scared that he would wake up and turn into a girl, and he didn't want to.
Well, because they're young and their minds are very impressionable. Like what we feed our minds is what we become.
Yeah. But I wanted to point out there are some good books. Like there's right here, Libby Justice. So that's
Libby Justice.
Yeah.
Or the 700 books that Jamie just inherited from her father-in-law. Or your
my sister's father-in-law has, I do have I love a library, so we have plenty of books, and he was getting, maybe gonna downsize, and said like, "Hey, I have some old kind of like Time magazine encyclopedia styles and some other books. Would you want them?" And I said, "I love them." And last week, him and my brother-in-law delivered 23 boxes of books. So
maybe we should have a book fair at Summit. Like, how in your neighborhood, like your neighborhood has like the little free libraries. What if like everyone who comes to Summit brings a couple books to give away, and we do a big giant like book giveaway and book drive?
Yeah. Oh, that would be fun.
And then here we're getting off topic, but this is actually really interesting because there was a couple stories that I never really was able to break, where when traveling around the state and I would talk to groups for Moms for Liberty, inevitably just about every time a group of librarians would come up to me and talk and say, "Here's what's happening. I've been a librarian for 20 years. And one of the big complaints that they had, how many books are getting thrown away and sent off to the garbage. And they took pictures, and all these librarians would call families and say, "Listen, all of these books are going to go to the garbage. Come in and pull them out and read them." And so books that were like older than 1960, because they're getting tossed, and then to make room for these new woke books and for the new revisionist history. And I always wanted to talk about that, but it's really sad. So I would encourage people collect books, especially older books, because they're literally going into garbages from high schools and libraries.
And I want to give a big plug here too to the public library. We are adamant supporters of our public library.
Yes.
My son is a ferocious reader. I'm very blessed that way. He loves to read. But we're already paying for local libraries like through our taxes. I mean, I just returned 3 books last week for him that would have alone, if I had bought them, cost me $100. So if you're not using your local library, you're missing out.
I have to tell you, my sister texted me the other day and she's like, do you have a library card? And I was like, I think so. Like I haven't been in a while, and she's been renting like audiobooks, and she's not a reader. And so this is pretty interesting. Side note, a couple years ago, we did a challenge. I think I told you about this, Roz, where she likes to work out and she's very physically active, and I like to read. And so we did this challenge for like every minute that I worked out, she would read a book.
That's fun.
Yeah, it lasts like 3 weeks, and we were both like, okay, we've had enough of this. But she started listening to audiobooks, and she's renting them, borrowing them from the public library. And so I guess there's a limit. I think you can only get like 3 or 4 a month. And so she was like, I need your library card so I can borrow more audiobooks. So
yeah, I love libraries. My grandmother was an avid reader, so she raised me to be one. We went to the library every weekend. I would read in the summer, sometimes 1 book a day. Thankfully, I was a very good reader because I suck at math, and my reading score got my ACT and SAT over like where it needed to be. But especially when you don't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of money. So going to the library, getting books, renting VHS tapes, that's how we would rent VHS. Yeah, we used to do that. And then we could watch movies, and a lot of librarians that I run into in Wisconsin are not woke at all, and they care a lot, and they're actually disturbed about what's happening. So, you can't lump a few bad apples into the whole bunch.
And that's a life lesson, right? Like we can't make assumptions out of like a group by identifying them by a certain way. Like what a miss that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a few reading. I should be reading more. I'm probably on social media too much now.
You are reading. They're just not books.
I know, right? They're tweets.
I know. I'd rather
we're lawsuits. That's what we're spending our time reading.
Lawsuits, house bills, right? Reconciliation bills.
Right.
Yes, bills.
All right, Scarlett, what's this? What are we turning what used to be known as Pride Month into?
Parental Rights Month. And so Tina did talk about this, and we do have some plans that we are working on with Moms for Liberty. And I just this year became aware of the fact that this will be in June 1st, the 100th anniversary of Pierce versus the Society of Sisters, which is a landmark Supreme Court decision that enshrined parental rights in America. And so this is really important. It lands when Pride Month lands. And so we thought, wouldn't it be great if we celebrated parental rights and focused on that instead of, transgender.
Because I am proud to be a parent.
Yes. It's the greatest thing that I will ever do, I have ever done. And I think we all feel that way. So we are in talks with the White House. So hopefully we'll be doing something. And we plan to, what are some of the things that we're thinking about doing? What can we say? Or do we have to keep it all secret?
I'm keeping it lid on it now, besides this tweet here.
Okay, besides this, you will find out coming soon. There are things in the works. So it will be fun, and it's just about how Moms for Liberty and the moms are we're changing the conversation, and we're going to be and parental rights is on the ascendance. It's slow, it takes time, but when a Southern California federal judge says, okay, y'all, you've gone too far. Now, even that's too far for us.
Yep.
Then we know that, okay, we're making a difference, and we just have to keep talking about these things.
We have to keep elevating these conversations. They don't happen as one-offs. They trickle through every state. And so it matters, right? The elevation of parental rights matters. It's a fundamental right. And I'm thrilled to be a part of the work that we're doing to make this a national kitchen table conversation. It's a heavy burden. I know we've all borne it in some capacity or another, but we will just keep on trucking. And something else that we're focused on right now is joining with other like-minded organizations on a really, really big reconciliation bill request, which is to defund Planned Parenthood at the federal level. Take that, almost $800 million in federal funding and get it out of there. Is that right?
Yes. And I think a lot of people, even a lot of conservatives, are not aware of the fact that, yes, the Hyde Amendment protects demands that Planned Parenthood cannot be paid for abortion. However, they receive a lot of money because they are the #1 provider of sex education in American schools. They get 80% of all human growth and development funding, all of the funding for safe sex, teen pregnancy prevention, human growth and development, what we call comprehensive sexuality education. It goes through the department, through Planned Parenthood. And that is a lot of money. And so I've read estimates as high as $800 million or more that they get reimbursed. And so yesterday, their Live Action had a talk, and Catalina Stube was representing Moms for Liberty in her conversation. And we wanted to point out that the way that Planned Parenthood operates, they get federal funding to convince a child that they are transgender. And when they do that, as Live Action has shown, these kids will call Planned Parenthood because they're directed to these virtual care centers. They will be diagnosed, they will be treated, they will be given puberty blockers, and then these claims are submitted to Medicaid and they get reimbursed. So it starts in the schools, and that's where Moms for Liberty, that's our domain. That's what we are concerned with. And that's why we align with Live Action and all of these other partner groups that
Susan B. Anthony, yep. American Principles Project, yep.
And speaking of comprehensive sexuality education, tonight it's CSE 102, and that's at 6 o'clock Eastern time, or no, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time, sorry. And our good friend Kelly will be on this virtual lecture. And I've been talking to her about this, and she knows so much about CSE because it started in California, and I think 2017, 2018. It's where it was first introduced. So she can enlighten anyone that wants to know more about CSE and its connection to Planned Parenthood. She has a lot of that information. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Jamie, you? No?
No, I mean, in Virginia, or not specifically in Virginia, I don't know, but in Fauquier, where I am, we, have an opt-out for sex education. I think the binder, that you can go and look in central office is this thick, full of the education curriculum that was passed by Virginia Department of Education. And I think that's also the thing is, that regardless of what the curriculum is, not every teacher is teaching all of it. I think it depends on who the teacher is. I think,
yes,
the kids, there's just so many different aspects of these conversations. And, do you have to ask for the opt-out? Is the opt-out provided? The questions there. And so I think, again, our willingness and our work for Moms for Liberty is just to start asking those questions in your communities and for your kids' schools.
So you're right. The way that Advocates for Youth, which is the most recommended CSE comprehensive sexuality education curriculum in Wisconsin, in Maryland, in Illinois, it's in a lot of different states. They have like this whole, I've actually downloaded thousands of pages, and each school can tailor and align it to their state standards. Lots of times they can't find teachers that will teach the more controversial curriculum, and that's where Planned Parenthood comes in. They will have Planned Parenthood nurses or trainers come in and teach those more kind of, the most disturbing aspects of comprehensive sexual education, like talking about sex toys and stuff to little kids.
So just like, and this was recently reported by Fox 45 Baltimore. So I just want to read this here, but like, just to give perspective to people who are listening, like this is how this kind of works. So the Maryland Department of Health received about $7 million in federal taxpayer grant funding since 2020 to run the True You Maryland program in Allegheny, Washington, Dorchester, Somerset, Wacomico, and Worcester counties. So documentation of the program obtained by FOIA revealed that Planned Parenthood instructs Maryland teachers how to provide sex education as the presentation is titled "Tossing Out the Binary." So this is how this money then gets spent. So it's not funding abortion per se, even though I could read another article that's saying that we are teaching sex ed, and then we are promoting going to Planned Parenthood, where 80% of their services at Planned Parenthood are abortions, right? So this is how they are getting into and seeping into the minds of our youth, this clinic that is not actually a health clinic. And then they're teaching this misinformation, or rather disinformation, because it's not real. The gender the gender ideology is not real. And so this is how they seep into the education system. And this is why we want them defunded, because we don't want them in our K through 12 space.
I mean, Amaze videos, a lot of these Amaze videos, there's in the curriculum, in the Advocates for Youth curriculum, they mention Planned Parenthood. They will recommend Planned Parenthood. They will have Planned Parenthood come in and hand out fruit-flavored condoms to 6th graders. So, to me, like Catalina said it, she said, our kids become cash cows. They just become a revenue stream for Planned Parenthood. They create the problem, they diagnose the problem, and then they, quote, fix the problem. And if there's not enough kids having abortions because of population decline, then they will get them another way. And now they're using this transgender medicine as just another revenue stream, a way to profit off of so much like pain. It's horrendous. Here's one book that was let's talk about abortion.
Well, I just looked it up, and there's a handful of states that have laws or bills restricting third-party sex education.
Oh, which ones?
So Arkansas, in 2021, Arkansas passed legislation prohibiting public schools from engaging with organizations that perform abortions, which effectively barred Planned Parenthood. A lot of similar bills like that: Ohio, Utah, Montana, Florida, Texas, North Dakota.
If you're not going to let the Catholic Church, if you're not going to let a priest come in and talk about sex ed, then why would you let Planned Parenthood? It's not
That's
fair.
A great observation, Scarlett. It really is. There is a true disconnect between religion and what gender ideology, which I think is a religion, it has been allowed and tolerated, and not even tolerated, expected. Like, we are expected to buy into this belief, or insert every single name we've ever been called.
Why can't a public school say, hey, the local parish promises, they cross their heart that they are not going to promote their worldview. They're just going to give an honest, straightforward curriculum and lessons about abstinence. And they're not, why can't they do that? If Planned Parenthood can go in and do it, and they profit, they make money when kids engage in sex and it results in a pregnancy that they can have an abortion. They make money because they get reimbursed. Like all those free condoms and stuff they give out, the free contraception, it's not free. They submit the receipts to the federal government, who reimburses them. Nothing is free. So they are funded with federal dollars, and it's perfectly acceptable for us to ask that to stop when Republicans are in charge.
So we are a big proponent of defunding Planned Parenthood with our taxpayer money. And if you don't want federal money going to funding Planned Parenthood, then call your member of Congress and tell them you want them defunded. I think that's the call to action, right?
And you certainly want to keep them out of sex education in schools.
Yes, this book should not be in a school. This book should not be read to kids in a school, and it is, and it should not be. That's just, that doesn't align with lots of parents' values. It doesn't align with a lot of families with their religious faith, and it's not constitutional in my opinion. And I'll get Bem into
Preach it.
Well, I think there's something to be said there. It's like everything, everything else. It's not necessarily the curriculum, but it's the organizations that are backing it, and the ties and it's not any different than, most of us don't disagree with the idea of social and emotional learning, but it's the curriculum and the organizations and the funding tied to the curriculum.
It's the agenda behind it that's the problem. Mm-hmm. That's trying to push one worldview. Yeah, it's trying to push one narrative versus having true individual independence and liberty, right? That I am allowed to have my autonomy. And it's also taking away our ability to self-control and self-regulate and say, like, yes, I want this, or no, I want this, right? Like, this is big government or some lobbying firm for some organization using the government to then come in and push their will or their beliefs on us. And that's just not American. That's not what we were founded on. All right. What else do you have, Scarlett? What else do you want us to chat about?
Oh, this I'm your mom now crap.
No, you're not my, no.
And I would never say that. I can't imagine in if your parents aren't accepting of the American flag, like, I'm your mom now, like, no. I don't.
And this was pinned taped to a door of a middle school classroom in Wisconsin. And this group, if you look them up, the hashtag Free Mom Hugs, they do this all over the country. Mm-hmm. And they run around saying, like, I'm your mom now to children. And that's, again,
vulnerable children.
Vulnerable, impressionable. So, like, are you going to tell my son if I don't let him have dessert for dinner that you'll let him have dessert? I'm your mom now. Like, what?
I'm your mom now. You can have dessert at my house.
Like, okay, now you're actually just sound like my mom, and I have to fight with her on that. So at least she can be grandma, right? Like,
yeah. Hell to the no. You are
That's
never.
not any different than that. The mom that we heard from the Moms for Liberty Colorado town hall, who said, the art teacher, whatever teacher it was like, oh, you can sleep on my couch now. You can live here now. I'll be your mom now.
No, I don't understand why people in general want to insert themselves into other people's families. I don't get it. I advocate because I think it's in my family's best interest, right? And I think that the founding of America is at risk if we don't really protect individual liberties and autonomy. And if we have too much government oversight, then we don't self-regulate. I mean, that's kind of why we weren't able to get Iraq to be independent. When we really think about it, they had atrophied their understanding of how to be independent. They didn't know how to do it. That's why it didn't work. And so if we keep pushing this and inserting ourselves into other people's autonomy and independence in their families, we're really down a slippery slope. So
I really appreciated President Trump giving those speeches. He's probably giving one right now, telling world leaders, like, we're not going to babysit you. We're not here to enforce our values on you. Like, we want to work together. We want to partner, but we don't control you. And I think that's how parents feel, that we want to partner with teachers, but you don't get to say that, oh, well, the kids are in my classroom for such and such amount of time. And I think most teachers, the vast majority of teachers do not want to parent other people's children. They just want to do their job and do it well and go home to their own families. But there are these renegade teachers like this one that feel that they are better than the mega parents and that they're going to save. It's a God complex. They have narcissistic personality disorder, in my opinion, and they should not be teaching kids. If this is what you're going to put on your door, you shouldn't be teaching kids. That's not right.
No.
In my opinion.
And you have to think like the principal too, right? Like the principal is a little bit complicit in this school for allowing this to be the culture that's acceptable there. I had to have a conversation at my son's school because for 2 years in a row now, the librarian was allowed to promote banned book week. And I went in and this is in October. And so I had to have a conversation, and it was a well-received conversation talking about, that this is an agenda. And I was able to show, well, here's how what you talked about on Monday isn't true. Here's an example of a school district who did remove a book on its own, like through no concept of parents instepping. And the school was like, I'm like, does that constitute a banned book because the school removed it? This actually is a promotion that's from the teachers union. This isn't something that's nationally recognized. And so you have to be able to go in and have conversations with the administrators because sometimes they don't know, right? Like they're so busy overseeing a school and dealing with potential children having consequences and issues. But they don't know that that's not a real thing, or that it's just a narrative being pushed. So I think there's a lot to be said for the administrators taking accountability. And again, going back to the inspect what you expect. And that's kind of what we're doing as moms here.
So when you mention banned book week, I get so irritated because most of the books that PEN America will put on the banned book list are banned by leftists. Okay. Because like 1984, my kids have all read it except for my youngest, and she will be reading it in high school. And if she wasn't, I would make her read it and we discuss it. And I personally will quiz them on it because sometimes I know kids will not read the books they're assigned, but this is one that is a must read for my children. I want them to read this. I want them to read Brave New World. And so there are so many books that they have on this so-called ban list. They're banned, like To Kill a Mockingbird, banned by the left. Dr. Seuss, banned by the left. So many of these books, it's like, we don't care about any of these books. Like all of these books my kids would read or I have read. So they ban the books, and then they're really popular, timeless books. And then they run around saying, oh, look, these are banned books. Except for you're the one that banned them. Put on the ones that we don't like. And they're not banned, by the way. You can buy them. You can check them out of a public library. We're just asking that they be age appropriate and not be available to young kids in school libraries. So put the real books, put the books, those really gross books like Lawn Boy, put that on there, and then read out loud the passages. It's so dishonest. It drives me crazy.
Scarlett, Lindsay jumped on. I don't know if we want to add her to the stage.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
So real quick, I'm going to show the graphic because she was just on, and we are going to bring her on. All right, Lindsay, we're bringing you on. I'm removing the graphic. Can you hear us?
She's muted. She's coming.
Here, I'll see if I have to unmute her on my end.
We'll wait until it figures it out.
Yeah.
Well, what else are we excited about? Morgan Wallen has his new album dropping, so that's what I'm excited about.
Oh, he does? I didn't know that.
Friday.
She's going to come back on. She'll be right back on. But here.
I'm excited for hopefully lower drug costs. That's exciting.
I am very excited. And it's what I think is interesting is Trump announces this, the Trump administration, and then you see that Democrats are like, well, you better run and get your medicine now because of these low prices. They're going to be out of stock. It's like, you can't win for trying.
Nope. And
the financial crisis that wasn't.
That's a good way to say
it. Yeah. Oh, sell your stock. My husband was like buying during that time. And so you just, it was so much, there's just so much like,
I think the whole message, we just need to keep holding the line. Things are working.
Yes. And it's not to say that everything will go perfectly, but there's things that we have to do certain things because it's in the long-term best interest of our children.
And we have a country to save and generations to save to make sure that they have liberty, that they have independence, that they have autonomy.
I'm texting Lindsay to see
Okay.
if she's going to be getting back on. So, and I'll go through X and see what's trending.
What
So
about how the DNC is going to do a revote on their vice chair because he's a boy and they just put in those gender rules, and I guess he doesn't fit into whatever their gender rules are.
David, he's David Hogg.
David Hogg? Yeah. Is it
David
H-O-D-D?
Yeah, H-O-G-G.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's too white, unfortunately. Yeah, because gender and diversity rules. I'm going to put that up.
We could talk about
how about we just vote for the best people? How about we just go like with merit? I don't know. It's just a thought.
In Virginia, the Virginia Department of Education is implementing a policy where the standards of learning, so their SOL tests, are going to account for 10% of a student's final grade.
I like that. What do you think?
I do not like that.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, first off, I think that, we're doing like practice SOL. They're teaching to test.
How else do you know if they're on grade level or not?
I don't know, but I think every student is different. I think every teacher is different. I just, most recently I had the experience of opting my 5th grader out of one of her SOLs, and they've changed the requirements. So before, I think it was like you could opt your student out and, they would get a 0 or they would get a pass. And now they have all this, it's what is it, like rated? And so by opting her out, the school is getting a 0, where if she put her name on it and she answered every single question wrong, she would get a 0.25. And it's kind of like, well, as her parent, I'm making the decision to opt her out. So my opting her out is putting the school at risk for an accreditation issue. And it's not working for me.
So that's interesting.
So if half the class decided to opt their kids out because they didn't, especially, they have to pass 3 or 4 SOLs in high school. So they're testing them in 5th grade. They're testing them in 3rd grade. They're testing them in middle school, all the way through high school. And now these SOLs, which don't count towards graduation or anything like that in the lower levels, would potentially be working against the accreditation of the schools because of a choice I'm making as a parent. It's the same thing kind of with the absenteeism. A kindergartner can't find their own way to school. So
I wanted to point out, because Nikki Neely had just talked about the grading for equity too. So the different things that they're trying to do that I think are that they're trying, I don't know, they're trying to elevate the scores. They're, because they're not hitting their targets, and that's affecting their accreditation, that's affecting their funding. So they're trying to do it artificially. They're trying to do it in different ways, coming up with schemes rather than getting kids to the core knowledge, like teach to the test, have them take standardized tests, and then make sure that the scores are so that they can parade and say, oh, look, we're doing better. But they're not. It's not real.
Well, and a lot of times it's okay, so maybe they failed the first time, and my older daughter was it would be like by 1 point. They're like, okay, so have them take it again, and then they pass, and it's just this. I don't know. I have why doesn't he be?
Do your kids have redo policies?
What do you mean?
Like if they get a grade on a test, then they can redo it to get a better grade. Like they could redo it within 1 or 2 grades, which I don't like at all. I don't like it. I think
that's how it is everywhere now. It didn't used to be.
Yeah, I don't like it because I've literally heard my kids say, well, okay, so I got a B. I can retake it and get a B plus. Like, no, study for it like you want to get an A. Like there's no redos. I don't like that policy.
There's no redos in life. I think if you have, if you've been diagnosed with test anxiety, or you struggle with tests, or you have like
or you have an IEP, that's different. Yes.
But in general, though, I am a proponent of testing. I don't want to teach to the test, but also we have to have comprehension, right? We have to make sure that there is mastery. I don't like or agree with that it would then jeopardize the school if you opted your child out. I want it for my child. So I know, like, okay, are you grade level proficient in your reading? Are you struggling in understanding chemistry and you want to be a chemist when you grow up and graduate? But it shouldn't penalize the school district, because then that's coercion, right? Like, you're then in theory being coerced to take a test, and that isn't autonomy.
And what about if a school takes, they have, like in Wisconsin, that there are a certain number of families outside of the district that can come into the school, and it's by lottery. And they're coming from Milwaukee, a city school, and then they're coming into a suburban school. And when they're testing, then maybe scores go down. Well, that will disincentivize programs like that, which give sort of a school choice option for families. And I think that, so there's ways. I support testing. I do think that there's got to be ways where you're not punishing a school if they're, if, like, let's say they have a larger number of kids with IEPs, then you should be able to figure out ways to navigate that and get the correct numbers, so that otherwise they don't want to give IEPs, or it will disincentivize other things that we need for kids who are struggling and for programs that are to help needy families. So,
well, it's interesting that we can have this civil conversation, even though we might not agree 100% on the best course of action. Funny how that works out. We just want to come to the conversation with like collaboration and solutions.
Well, and can I also say that a teacher sent me a TikTok on this. So it's like I haven't seen it anywhere else. Some news source in Virginia made a TikTok about it, and was kind of like, is this true? And again, like, we just had this whole weighted point system for the SOLs, and now they're implementing this in the I guess it's maybe for one more school year, but which will also potentially come with it will come with the new administration. So who knows what that will entail. But
what have been the positive changes since Glenn Youngkin? Like, what did you notice differently from his administration with education?
I don't think we have enough time for that. We have a 12 o'clock.
Quick 30s. I mean, I think that
he was able to get things done, or was he kind of stymied by the?
Well, I think there was a lot of things. I think there, obviously one of his biggest promises was that parents matter, and he was going to get our, masks off kids and COVID, and that happened in some places, but we're still dealing with the same things. There was a couple of executive orders that had some squishiness to them, that now Jason Miyares, our attorney general, is coming in and filing suits against them. But, there wasn't that big red wave of seats won in certain districts. And we lost the House, and
it gets hard. It's hard to cover
the Senate. And so.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jamie, I'm going to butcher his last name, Nick Freitas. How do you say it?
Nick Freitas.
Yeah, he was on the call yesterday.
He's a baller. Where does he represent? I was like, I want to.
He was in our neighboring district. So like through Culpeper, I think, in like Orange, and in that area. He spoke at our last Lincoln Reagan dinner, and he had a phenomenal speech. Super patriotic, just really talked about, men being involved and supporting their families and standing up. And he's a huge supporter of, this pro-life and, the school choice movement. And so it is a shame that he won't be seeking re-election, but
he's
I think no.
What's he going to do?
I don't know. Maybe he'll join our Moms on the Right.
We get on this show. Inquiring minds need to know, Nick. Why are you not running for re-election? Like,
I would like
that is a conservative miss. Like somebody needs
You
to
gonna run
get
for
moving.
Congress or run for a different office?
Nick, tell us.
What are you doing?
And Nick loves a good coffee cup, so I don't know. Maybe he'll come on. Scarlett, you reach out.
I'll DM Nick. You're gonna get a DM from Moms for Liberty. Okay.
Maybe he'll want to be
Bottom line,
involved
let
in
him
the
know.
big 100 years of parental rights. So
Yeah. I mean, he's got to come. Oh, that's an idea. Let's do it.
Add to cart.
Yeah. He's got to do it. Yeah,
it was actually really cool. We sat at his table. I sat at his table, and we got to talk about some of his experiences on his tours overseas, and it was just really cool because my dad shared in some of those experiences, and so it was just like really personable. Just a nice guy, super patriotic.
What branch of the military?
This is why we need to have him on. Don't Google it, Jamie.
Let's leave something. I don't give away all of his secrets.
Let's leave something.
I know we probably didn't even name branches. He was in the kind that showed up when his number was called. So
yeah. Well, he was awesome on the call because I listened yesterday because Catalina was able to she was able to talk for a good like 8 minutes, and then there was a little response back, and so she was able to, and she really did a good job talking about what Moms for Liberty does. And if you want to hear it, you just have to go to our actually I should be putting some of the banners across like.
Well, I think that's a good shout out too. If you are on social media and you want to reach out to Scarlett, you have a story or, a press release or something that's going on, reach out to Scarlett. I'm coalitions coordinator with Moms for Liberty. So if you want to partner with us, you want to share some initiatives that we're working on or that, we can work with you on. Rosalind is the director of development. So always willing to have a conversation about ways to fund and raise
charitable giving. We are a 501c4. All of our grassroots work is done by the generous people listening to this who believe in Moms for Liberty. Moms for Money, I was going to say.
I know. Don't believe the rumor that we're funded with all this dark money because we're still trying to find it. We're not.
It's so dark we can't find
it. We're Moms for Money.
It's so dark we just can't.
You give us money and we'll figure out where to put it.
The generous donations from y'all, they go to good use because we are like the U.S. Marines of the parental rights movement. We don't just talk about things, we do things. We go to school board meetings, we run candidates, we bring change. We don't just talk about it. We are the change makers. And so if you want to do something about what's happening in schools and education in your area, and you don't have to be a mom, you can be a grandparent, you could just be a dad, of course, you could be a community member. Your property taxes fund, at least half of them go to fund your local school district. And then that doesn't include the state taxes and then federal money that all goes to fund schools. And schools are often the largest employers of small communities. Oh yes, let's talk about Summit.
Well, we cannot. We have a 12 o'clock, Scarlett. So with that, if you want to be a human doer, go to momsforliberty.org and do donate.
Yes. And if you want to have fun, come join the Summit in Orlando, October 16th through the 18th. There's early bird pricing, and it's fun. Now you're going to learn a lot, and there's going to be great speakers that aren't announced yet, but the number one I could say is you're going to have a lot of fun with like-minded people, and you'll get to see us. Beautiful. It's gorgeous. And there is a book. So when you book that, you can book at the hotel, the Gaylord Hotel, which I have never been to, but I hear it's
beautiful.
fabulous.
I love it. It's one of our favorite hotels to stay at, resorts to stay at in Orlando. Sponsorship opportunities, or come and join. I don't know how many are we holding this year? 1,500 like-minded people.
Yes. All right, we got to go.
All right.
We have to go. We have another call.
Bye. Bye, everybody. It's been great.